Hey everybody, I'm Mike Baird. I've been in the music business as a drummer for over 40 years. So if you're into drum stuff, or you're not even into drum stuff, but you like good stories about the music business, well, you've come to the right channel. Welcome to Mike's Drum Cubby. Welcome, Covers, to another episode of Mike's Drum Cubby, the channel I created for you, the Covers. So today, we got a great drum, and we got a couple of great stories. With the drum, you're going to hear it, we're going to play it, and do all that good stuff, and then the stories, how I got the drum, and then another one that's kind of tossing myself under the bus, which, you know, I don't really like to do. Anyway, so if you dig the channel, hit the subscribe button, give me a thumbs up. But today, let's get to the drum, the pork pie dumpster drum. At the time of this video, this drum was a one and done, and it may still be. It looks beat up, but it's not, it's brand new. Like most drummers, I love new stuff, and how I stumbled upon this one, I'll share at the end of the video, along with why it looks beat up. The drum is a 6.5 by 14, has 8 lugs, good mid-range through all the tunings, low, medium, and high, warm and fat sounding as well. The only thing I might eventually change would be the standard snare wires just to see where the drum can go. But for now, leaving it alone, because if it sounds good, why mess with it? Here's the throw off, the butt end, and the hoop that shows the aging. Okay, dumpster drum, pork pie. Drum, low tuning. And it's got a ring in the duck shape. It's just a higher tuning, probably about as high as I'd go with it. So here we go. Rim shot. Okay, so I took it out this time. I tuned it way low, and then I took the ring off. I put 12 o'clock, well, I did have 12 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and around 5 o'clock, and another little strip of tape here. And then I took this lug, it's an 8 lug. I took this lug here, and I spun it all the way out, so there's no tension. So, there we go. Well, we're back. Anybody want to guess the weight of this drum? 6 pounds, 5.3 ounces. Okay, so how I got the drum. Well, it's a pork pie, so you know it's Bill Denimore, and if you don't, Bill Denimore owns Pork Pie Percussion. Anyway, I was down to visit Bill, and I happened to be in the shop, and I saw these 3 tom shells sitting there. They weren't put together, they were just the shells with a really nice wrap. And I looked at the shell, and the shell looked really cool, and I went, wow, what are these? And he said, well, a guy called him up. He had a vintage Ludwig drum kit, and he wanted to add 3 toms, and he asked me if I could make drums that would sound similar to what he already had. So that's what these are. And I said, well, you wouldn't happen to have a snare drum shell, would you? And he goes, funny you should mention. So we walk over to the manufacturing side, and he gets up on a ladder, and up on the top shelf, he pulls his shell off. He blows the dust off of it. Who knows how long it had been there. And he goes, it's a 6.5 by 14. I go, can you make a snare out of this? He goes, absolutely. And I go, can you make it 8 lug? And he goes, yeah, of course. So he tells the guy, hey, you know, one of his guys, hey, order the hardware for this. Let's make it 8 lug. And I said, I don't want your normal hardware. I want the tube lugs. And he goes, yeah, we can do that as well. And he goes, what do you want wrapped in? I said, I don't know, just wrap it in something cool. I'm good. So about a week later, I think, he calls me up and says, your drum's ready. I go down, I pick it up, pay for it. It's all good. So I take it home, I play it, and I'm falling in love with it. I mean, immediately, it's a great sounding drum. I'm tuning it up, tuning it down, mid-range. I mean, it's got everything. But then I start thinking, well, the finish is kind of a yellowed finish, which makes it look like it's older, like it's not a brand new drum. So he does this stuff to drums. I'd seen a drum that he did, a Rogers Dynasonic, that he did what they call relicking hardware, which they make the hardware look like it's old, like it's rusted, pitted. It doesn't look new. And so I asked him, and I guess who basically kind of came up with that, or another company that does it, is Fender Guitars. They have a line of vintage guitars, which are brand new guitars, but they make them look worn, like where the guy's arm was, you know, picking the guitar, the paint's worn or the pickguard's worn out, and the hardware's not perfect, you know, it's a little pitted or rusted or whatever. So they make it look like it's vintage, like it just hadn't been well maintained. Well, I asked him, can you do that to this drum? And he goes, yeah, of course. So I leave it with him. And of course, I ain't got to be without it for a couple of weeks, but that's okay. That's what I want. So he calls me. He says, it's ready. I go down and pick it up, and that's what you see. So I named it the dumpster drum because it literally looks like it came out of a dumpster, like it had been sitting in somebody's garage forever, got all rusty, whatever, and they just threw it away in a dumpster. So that's why I came up with the name. Well, now we go on to story 2. Well, you may have heard me mention a drummer named John Guerin. And John Guerin was a great drummer, did a lot of TV, movie, records, so forth. Well, I had the fortunate thing of hanging with him while I went to LA City College in the big band there. So I got to watch him, go down to his sessions, stuff like that. It was just awesome, which, you know, unfortunately now just doesn't happen that much anymore, if at all. At least it doesn't really for me. Occasionally, maybe I'll be able to invite somebody down, but it usually doesn't happen. But anyway, so it was at Wally Heider. And if you've watched any of the other episodes, I mentioned Wally Heider in another episode about, you know, it was a recording studio, and it was on Selma and Cahuenga in Hollywood. It's not there anymore. It's a coffee shop. And one of these days, I'm going to go down there and film it just so the people that watch the channel, they can see where it was. And, you know, to get an idea in Hollywood, if they go to visit Hollywood or whatever, they can say, oh, that was a famous studio at one time. Anyway, so I go down there, and it's Tom Scott, and it's Max Bennett on bass, and Tom Scott's playing saxophone, and they had a guitar player named Mike Dacey. And he was kind of the rock guy and did movies and television and records, but he was kind of the rock dude. And so he's sitting next to Tom Scott, and he's got this amplifier blasting, and it's just blowing the ears out of Tom. And he's losing. He's like, man, you got to get this guy to turn it down, man. It's like, you know, and it was pretty loud, whatever. But anyway, he was losing it, you know, whatever, over this deal. Anyway, they worked that out. So they go through a few songs, whatever, and now we're going to take a lunch break. So John comes up and says, hey, you know, we're going to go eat lunch. Why don't you come with us? So I said, sure. So they're going to go to this place called Musso Frank's. I didn't know what it was, but Musso Frank's, in case you don't know, is the oldest restaurant, or one of the oldest restaurants in Hollywood. And it's in the movie Once Upon a Time in Hollywood with Leonardo DiCaprio and Al Pacino, where Al Pacino is talking to him about his career and how it's going to get defunct if he doesn't do it, whatever. Anyway, that's the restaurant. And anyway, it's a high-end restaurant. We get there, we sit down, and everybody, they pass out the menus, and there's all the guys. There's probably about 6 guys, whatever, and myself. And I'm looking at, and the cheapest thing on the menu is like $15. Well, this is, back in the 70s, so the early 70s. So that's before I started doing dates or any of that. So, I barely have a couple of nickels to rub together, let alone going to spend $10-15 on a salad or just the soup or whatever. Anyway, they're ordering steak and all this stuff, and I just can't afford it. I can't afford anything. So I'm basically a toothpick and a glass of water, and I'm over budget. So anyway, they order, and they go, "Oh, you're not going to order anything?" "No, I'm not that hungry. I'm just here for the hang." And I was starving to death, but, what are you going to do? We get done with lunch. They're done with the hour break. We go back to Wally Heider's. Well, so at Wally Heider's in the control room where I was sitting, it was a big couch in front of the glass looking into the studio, and the producer, engineer, artist, or whoever it was sitting behind the console, and the console was behind me, and then they were behind that. So I'm sitting on this couch. Well, the next thing I know is I start hearing kind of people talking, and I'm thinking, oh, this doesn't look that good. And then all of a sudden I realize, yeah, I had fallen asleep. And I was obviously snoring. And then it's like, oh man, this isn't good. So they come to listen into the booth. They all come in. And John kind of looks at me, and I look at him, and I'm like, oh man, I'm sorry. I just realized I had fallen asleep. But, when you're really tired and whatever, I've been up studying whatever for LA City College because I was taking other things besides music. I had just basically dozed off. A lot of times you don't realize that you really were making any noise, and you don't know necessarily how out you were at the time and how long for. But apparently it was a moment. Anyway, at the end of the deal, I apologized to the producer. They all had a laugh about it. It all turned out great. John said, don't worry about it. It's all good. Everybody's all good with it. It was just like, you invite this guy down and now he's sleeping. It's like one of those. It wasn't a pinnacle moment for me, let's put it that way, or a shining star in my cap. But anyway, it all worked out. It was all great. Well, we've come to the end of another Cubby. And if you dug the channel, please hit the subscribe button. Give me a thumbs up. Send me a comment. And what do we always say?
That's it.
And we'll see you in a minute.
Yeah? What do you want?